It's not over that for the Egyptians, and they should keep on.
It would really be unfortunate if they stop now.
It's theirs to lose.
So close. Suleiman is nothing at all compared to Mubarak. Suleiman is nothing at all compared to Mubarak now, but he might become a big obstacle if he is allowed time to entrench himself in government.
Yeah.
Okay? So far, he was just the Grand Inquisitor of the Church of Mubarak.
Yeah.
Okay? That's all he was. He was some thuggish, scurrying, shadowy figure in the background in the deep dungeons of police stations and mukhabarat stations across the country. That means he was not much of anything to the military leadership, to the administrative, ministerial leadership, and others. But if he's allowed another week or 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, he might begin to perpetrate or force upon these levels of governance himself. Do you understand? He might force an image of himself as the leader of the country, of all these organizations, of all these national institutions. And if you get to that point, the inertia takes over. It becomes a lot harder for those institutions to disobey him, or to stand against him, or simply to stand aside from him and simply not support him, which they're more willing to do now. In fact, right now, they don't see him as anything. Who is Suleiman? Who is he to tell me? The president tells me what to do.
Right, he came out of nowhere, basically.
Suleiman is, he should go back to the dungeon and go back to... Actually, he shouldn't go back to torturing innocent people.
He should go to a dungeon, though.
Back to the dungeon, so he can lock the door and throw away the key.
Yeah, how does it feel?
So on a serious note, the Egyptians, I hope to Allah that I have outlined the salient points of this affair enough that one can easily make a decision. It's not an easy decision to make, but wallahi, it is much easier to make it today, tonight, than it is to make it tomorrow, and it's easier tomorrow than the day after, and after that it gets harder and harder and harder again.
Yeah.
And Allah forbid, it might actually get so hard, it might become even worse under Suleiman or some thug like him than it was under Mubarak. And let me explain. This is actually a topic for a whole lecture by itself. In 1991-92, I forget the exact date, the Algerian people finally rose up against another thug, another Mubarak-like thug that was ruling over them, and basically demanded national elections. And when they finally had those elections, the majority of the people of Algerians had chosen their candidates, Muslims from the majority of the people there, and it looked like the old regime was going to be literally thrown out completely.
Yeah.
None of them were going to survive the elections. And what they did was the help of the French and the American, the French regime and the American regimes, who came in from behind the scenes, supported the old regime, and pushed them on, literally egged them on to eliminate, to cancel the elections completely, imprison all the candidates of the people that the people had, quote unquote, democratically chosen, by the way. About 19,000 or so of these candidates were imprisoned. Not just candidates, they had actually won the elections. And then what happened after that, and this is what Suleiman is probably thinking right now, and his Jewish masters are, I'm sure his Jewish masters, I've already had this conversation with him, if they're not having it with him as we speak, that from what he needs to do if he doesn't want to end up in a deep dungeon somewhere, him and the rest of his torturing thugs, and possibly Mubarak, is they need to get on the Algerian program. Now, what does that mean? What the Algerian regime did after that is they murdered 100,000 of their people. They started these false flag operations. They started bombing mosques, administrative buildings, houses. They would attack whole villages in the mountains, attack them and murder everyone in there. Men, women, and children. Just complete an Islamic murder. Something unheard of in Islam, ever.
Yeah.
Never. There's no tradition like that. Of course, there's a large tradition like that of murdering, hundreds and thousands of people, of completely, women, men, and children in Europe. That's what the Inquisition was about. With all the Inquisitions and the witch hunts and then the wars of heresy and so forth and so on. A lot of times people would run for help or succor in a church, even in America. They'd run to a church, men, women, and children, so hopefully to be safe from whatever marauding group that was coming after them. And they would just surround them and burn the church down or kill everyone in the church.
That's right. But
this kind of murder is unheard of in Islamic history. And that's what happened in Algeria. And of course, it was the goddamn regime that was behind it, with the help of specific units in the military. Not all the military, not the police. It was specific units of terrorists that were trained in the Jewish terrorist state. And now the military protected them, but the military had no idea who they were protecting. The military and the police would just be told, "We need you to stand guard at this road. Set up a checkpoint so nobody goes this way." You understand?
Yeah.
Or we need you to accompany this vehicle or these 2 or 3 vehicles. You don't know who's inside, what they did, and secure them all the way to the base so they can get to safety as soon as they finish murdering a whole village of men, women, and children. And then, of course, they would turn around and accuse the Muslims, the ones who won the elections. You get it?
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen in Egypt.
That's satanic.
Okay, they're going to accuse extremist elements, who are demanding power for themselves. You get it? Basically, what they're going to do is literally try to avoid the whole revolution. They say, we're going to have elections, and they're going to have elections. They're going to put the same thugs back, find a whole bunch of thugs, that worked with the regime before.
Yeah, not hard to do.
Yeah, it is, as I said, there's probably up to 1 million of these thugs. Find them that are unknown to the people, so that it takes people a few months, a few years to figure out, who they are and what they're capable of. But by that time, they will have Egypt in the midst of a horrific murderous tyranny. And the whole time they're blowing up churches and mosques and houses and villages. They will accuse the revolutionaries, extremist revolutionaries. But they're not going to use the word revolutionary. I use that term that in the sense, the way tactically this works, the way strategically it works, they will accuse the people who rose up in revolution so it doesn't happen again.
In that square or something.
So anytime somebody goes to the square to start it off, they're going to say, these are the extremists who are doing this.
Huh.
Do you get it?
Yeah, yes, that's satanic.
It's extremely important believe me, it's much easier to stay in the square now and to take shifts and keep coming back until Suleiman and his thugs are gone and make sure they choose their leader right there.
Yeah,
choose your leader right there in the square. Okay, and he demand that he is accepted by the military.
That's important. The military to accept it.
Yeah. They should choose their leader in this. They should do the election right now. Take a week out with the revolution and everything else and say, we're going to do it right here. People are going to come to the squares of every town and vote for their leadership. Send in a parliament to Tahrir Square and then have those people get together at Tahrir Square and choose a leader right there, a president. It's not hard to do. It's what would happen anyway. In fact, it's actually cheaper to do it this way.
Right.
Rather than organize a whole, one of those American electoral affairs. Which is
they're already there. They're already there.
Yes, every town and village, they should have their election in their square, open election, elect a representative, just like they would do a parliamentarian, send them into Tahrir Square, and have them organize an open parliament, right there in the square, and televise it, and choose a president.
And that's very important, I guess, to have it all televised. It's got to...
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, there's going to be people with cell phone cameras and cameras. And plus, the state television should come and televise it. And not just, well, of course, they're going to demand, even now, they should demand that the internet is reestablished.
Well, the television is already on their side.
The internet should be reestablished.
Yeah. Huh.
You understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
The internet should be reconnected again, so people and cell phone and telephone communication should be reestablished. Why? If Mubarak resigned, if supposedly we got what we want, where's the internet? Where's the communications?
Right, right.
You
This has
understand?
to happen now, you're saying. I mean, this is...
Absolutely. So again, to recap, it's much easier to get rid of Suleiman today than tomorrow, and much easier tomorrow than the day after.
Yeah.
And Stu, Suleiman has to go. Suleiman is the guy who has all the secrets of the thuggish, oppressive regime. He's the one who holds all the ends of the strings of oppression. It wasn't Mubarak. Mubarak was just the thug at the top. The guy who actually took care of killing, murdering, tyrannizing, and torturing, took care of killing off opposition, and is cementing the regime of Mubarak in place was this thug, this murderer.
Huh.
Okay? So you haven't changed, and you actually made it worse. Now you gave the murderer, the guy with blood on his hands, you gave him the reins of power.
Huh. Yeah.
Three. Suleiman has blood on his hands. Not only is he the effective agent of oppression under Mubarak, he's also the guy who has the most to fear. Because Mubarak didn't go out killing people with his own hands. He had this murderer and his gangs do it. What does that mean in this point number 3? It means Suleiman has everything to fear from a free, open election. He will not allow it. If there's any candidates that come up and people start talking about them in the media, or anybody who looks like he has a chance at getting into power and is not going to be bought off or threatened by Suleiman and his gang, will be killed off, defamed, gotten rid of, imprisoned, whatever it needs. There are 1,000 options.
It's his thing.
And he will keep sifting and filtering through the electoral process until only the most cowardly are allowed to run, or only the ones who can be bought and corrupted. And once they might not be as corrupt as Mubarak at the beginning. They might be nice people, nice, decent, people. But the problem is they're corruptible.
Yeah.
Once they're in power, every day they're going to give in a little bit, until they become just like Mubarak, if not worse. And again, 4, if you allow Suleiman in, because he has the most to fear, and logically he will not allow real free elections, in order to make sure that after they put their thug or some corruptible imbecile in power, to make sure that people don't go back a month later or 3 months later to the square and say, you're not going to play us for fools, we're unemployed anyway, so we're just going to be unemployed in Tahrir Square and every other square in the country until we do what we want. In order to get rid of this chance ever happening again, they're going to do what the Jews with those murderers in Algeria did in Algeria for the past 20 years now. They're going to start murder on a massive scale. By the way, it's the same trick that was used in Iraq by the Kuffar. Ingrates used exactly the same trick to pacify Iraq. They just started blowing up mosques left and right and accusing Sunnis or Shiites of doing it.
To try to get a civil war and just...
Shiites and Sunnis never did this to each other. They have 1,200 years of history together as neighbors in Iraq, and they never did this. And the only ones who say want to foment the hatred between Shiites and Sunnis. I mean, I'm not talking about theological difference. Yes, we are theologically different in many ways. We've always been theologically different. But the ones who want division and war and killing and dying of Muslims, the ones who do this are the ones behind those killings in Iraq. Because they're two sides of the same coin. You perpetrate the terrorism, and then you come out on the other side and say, aha, it's the other side who did it. It's the other side. Because if you're not coming out and saying who did it,
it's going to...
Then the people are going to people are just going to take their guess who did it. They're going to say, "Oh, it's the Americans." They're the ones who stand the most to gain from this. And plus, this never happened until the Americans came and occupied our country.
Yes.
But instead, as soon as a mosque is blown up with a Shiite Sunni, as soon as a Kurdish wedding is blown up, within hours, you get on the media and you tell them who did it. It's the Al Qaeda. It's the Sunnis. It's the Mujahideen. It's the Shiites. It's the
Sadrs.
It's the Al Sadr revolutionaries or rebels. It's this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and the same technique, and this is point number 4, is going to be used against the Muslims in Egypt and the Christians in Egypt, by the way. They will blow churches and mosques. They will
Right.
blow secular and religious buildings and ceremonies, and they will do it to whatever level they want. They don't care. In fact, to them, it's just a matter of mathematics. They will keep killing until they get the reaction they want.
Because they have to.
It's Pavlovian. It's Pavlovian mass psychology.
Huh.
You keep zapping the dog until you get the reaction you want. It's the way you train dogs, for example.
Huh.
You keep punishing. Every time you get the wrong behavior, you punish.
Right.
Every time the Egyptians say the regime is doing it, you blow up something else. It's the same thing happening in Iraq. So there's millions of Iraqis who understand that it's the Americans and their terrorist contractors and their Jewish friends who are blowing up worshippers in mosques. No Muslim would ever blow up a mosque. Ever.
Right.
It doesn't matter which mosque. No Muslim would even blow up a church, let alone a mosque.
Yeah.
Simply because of our understanding of God as universal. That even those idiots who worship a cow, we understand that in a way it's misguided worship of God.
Right.
They just the devil substituted the cow for what they truly in their heart know is something universal.
Yes.
Instead, so that's why Muslims generally are a little more respectful when they're dealing with even the most idiotic pagans, unlike myself.
So I mean, okay, this can work, especially if you consider the fact that this is how the Mahdi is elected, right?
Yeah, in a sense, actually, the Mahdi, the hadith that we do have about this, that the Mahdi al-Islam was elected in Mecca, is elected in an open, transparent vote right there at the Haram Sharif.
Huh. So, I mean...
So 313 Muslims who come together in a sense, kind of like what happened in Tahrir Square in Egypt. Eventually, they're joined by thousands of others, locals and others, another Hujjaj from elsewhere, till their numbers swell to about 12,000, according to this that we have about the event.
Right. So, yeah, I guess that's the proof you need, I guess.
But again, I cannot emphasize this enough. They should not stop. Stay in Tahrir Square, and if you need to go home, take care of your family, do your business, whatever, take shifts. Take shifts. Most of the country is unemployed anyway. I mean, 90% of the country, when you include women, children, old people, are without jobs.
Right.
80%. Okay, well, so you got nothing better to do. Well, yeah, because of the former regime. So might as well just use it, but do something, something useful.
Yeah.
Choose your own government. And do, of course, ultimately, it's all up to Allah. We simply seek to advise our brothers and sisters as best as we know how from, of course, the wisdom of our religion and the wisdom of our Prophet ﷺ, and we have learned from him as applied to, of course, to these modern problems.
Right.
And so that's.